Hey YouTube, 30 Printed Life. So today's just going to be a quick one about my first impressions on the Monoprice MP1 Select Mini 3D printer. The $200 one. I always forget the name, it's kind of complicated. Anyway, I've had a bit of time with it, I've done a few prints, and I do have some good first impressions of it. So this is the first thing I did, a cube, and this was like zero calibration, zero anything. I just hit print, let it go, and it came out really good. You can tell there is a bit of strange artifacting vertically. Um, it just looks like the layers don't quite align properly on every layer. The top and bottom are thin because the extrusion multiplier was too low. This filament I was using, it's WYZ filament. They actually sent it to me to test, so I will be doing a review on that stuff soon too. But pretty cool filament. It's translucent green, and it prints perfectly. The only thing is that the filament is slightly narrower than most. It is still 1.75, but the actual dimensions are a bit lower, probably like 1.72-ish on average. So you do have to bump up the extrusion multiplier compared to most filaments like Hatchbox and your standard stuff, which is usually around 1.78. Here you can see I did an octopus, and now you can see these lines on the inside. Those are just from the infill because, again, it is a semi-translucent filament. But it came out pretty good. I mean, you can see some rippling and stuff there. But that's really not that uncommon, especially on a printer this cheap that has so much play in the gantry. Although, compared to most cheap printers, this is very, very little play. So really not that big of a deal. This was a completely hollow Aztec chief I printed in that translucent green. Now this is a very difficult material to print because it really shows off all of the defects. You can see that certain layers are different colors because of the temperature variation. That is a big complaint I have about this guy. If you go to temperature, you can just sit here and watch it and they will jump by as much as 10 degrees. Nothing is changing. The thermistors on this thing are absolutely terrible, and I would say that should be the first upgrade. I don't know how hard it would be to upgrade the thermistors, but either way, they're just really pretty awful. There's going to be huge temperature fluctuations by, as I said, as much as 10 degrees, and that can cause some pretty serious printing issues. But other than that, there's not too many defects. Rippling's pretty minimal because the max speed on this printer is recommended at 60 millimeters a second. And that is what I was printing at for all these guys. So it is a slow print, but nonetheless the quality is pretty good. Now I did the same thing out of red with some infill, and as you can see, it actually came out really, really good. I'm very happy with it. Now I do have an Aztec Chief from my Eclips3D2, which came out pretty much identically. And now you're probably saying, well, that's probably bad to say about your own printer. That costs like 5 times as much. Well, a few things to go along with that. It came out pretty much identically. The Eclips3D2 definitely is still is sharper and it has better details. Definitely not going to show up on a video like this. But trust me, it's there. Secondly, I printed this guy on my printer in less than half the time. And again, same quality. And finally, also, you got your printer reliability, build size, material capabilities, all that stuff to keep in mind. So this is an excellent printer for printing very basic materials, pretty much solely PLA and PLA-based polymers. Anything else with a low melting temp and a low heated bed temp will work just fine on this guy. Now, one issue I am having repeatedly, other than thermistors, is the extruder. The current on this motor is super overpowered, and this is a standard 40mm NEMA 17 underneath here. So it should have more than enough power, but if it's printing and you so much as give this a tiny tug in the other way, it will start skipping steps. In fact, I printed this with a 0.6mm wall, and that was just too much plastic to push through at once, and it was skipping like crazy, so I had to abort that. So I'm going to have to look into, unless you guys know, how to crank up the current on this motor, because it is definitely not where it should be. There is zero reason I see why it shouldn't be able to go up. The spring is providing a pretty good amount of tension here. I'd say pretty much perfect amount of tension. It is just a fact of the motor not having enough current, not having enough torque. Final print I did was a whistle. There's some red left over that I didn't fully purge because, again, not enough torque, which makes running filament through with the control very difficult because it tries to run it through too quickly and it will skip steps once again. So yeah, that is really my huge complaint with this guy. But if it can be fixed, it is not a big deal at all. But other than that, came out pretty good. As you can see, there's a bit of like zitting on the top. Top's not quite super even, and the whistle doesn't work great, which may be because of the printer, or it may just be the design or how it printed, something like that, not sure. I may print this same whistle on my printer and just compare the noise of them, because this one, that was blowing about as hard as you'd blow a whistle, and it's not very loud. I might have to blow harder, but I don't want it to like pierce my ears. Oh, final thing, this is terrible. Throw it out if you get this printer. Buy a real metal scraper, and also buy painter's tape, because the tape that came on here, that gray beige stuff, it lasted about 3 prints before it had a huge hole in the middle, had to replace it. But I believe that is the majority of my comments. Oh, one final thing about the fan, as I've mentioned in my unboxing, it sucks having the fan cooling the hot and heat sink as well as the build area. I mean, obviously, having one fan to do both, not enough airflow, and there's no way to individually control the fan for the build area. But, I mean, other than those few small things I mentioned, the small build area, this is really a nice printer. It's built very well, it's very heavyweight, it comes fully assembled, ready to print. Like I said, this was my first print ever on it, and it came out super good. Yeah, so if you're looking for a beginner's 3D printer, you won't learn a ton from this guide because it is pretty closed off. You can use open source software like Repetier to control it, and you will have to learn about that stuff if you do get a 3D printer. But as far as 3D printers go, it is a very good all-in-one, ready-to-go 3D printer. If you're looking to learn more about 3D printing to eventually move on to a bigger kit 3D printer like the Eclipse 3D or a similar Prusa i3 Mark II, something along those lines, I'd recommend either going straight to that bigger printer if you have the money, or if not, getting a smaller kit printer that you can put together. Now, the kit printer probably won't be as good as this guy. Of course, it will be better in some ways and not so in others, but by having a kit and having that experience of building it, it will help you a lot with understanding exactly how the 3D printer works, and it will help you more when you move on to a higher level kit 3D printer. Now, if you're just looking for a higher level on one, then go with this, but otherwise a kit. But that is enough of my ramblings. Stay tuned for more. I'll be doing a full review of this guy as well as more prints once I have them. And I will also be giving this guy away. So if you are not subscribed, head on down below, subscribe, turn on the little bell if you want notifications whenever I upload, and stay tuned for that giveaway. I'm hoping to do the giveaway in March, but that will depend on how much time I get to print and record videos and so forth. So thank you all for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned a bit about this printer. If you're interested in getting one, if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask and I can poke around and let you know what I think. That's pretty much all. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later.